Hey everybody, welcome to the Hardest Part is Getting Started podcast with Britt and Ange. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and Rumble. We also have a Facebook page obviously on Facebook. And then if you were to look us up, we are also individually on Instagram. So today's topic is about injury and how to get back on track or back to it after that injury has taken place. So just a reminder, this is a general topic. So please seek counsel from a physician if you're going through any injury or you're in the healing phase of that injury, because we're not doctors. We're only speaking from experience. And once again, it's general. So that's all I have to say for now. But I'm going to hand it over to Angelina and yeah, see what she has to say.
Thank you guys so much for being back here with us. We are excited to chat with you once again, and a topic that I think is super important. If you exercise or if you're an athlete and you're working out pretty consistently, how can you prevent injuries and how can you come back? Like Britt said, how can you get back to what you were doing after you have an injury? So I'm just going to share some ways from, like Britt said, experience from myself and some injuries that I've had and what I've done to kind of come back. And then a couple of tips on how you can try and prevent some of these injuries. So my biggest injury, I was running. I've kind of run on and off my whole life, but I just got back into consistent running where I was training for 5Ks and 10Ks. And like a lot of runners, if you're a runner, you know that warming up usually kind of falls somewhere in the if I have time category. And that's kind of where it fell for me. And it came back to kind of nip me in the butt later because I did end up with an injury. So I hurt my hip, and it was kind of to the point where I had to stop running. I was limping when I was walking, and I really was in a lot of pain. So don't follow my lead on that one. Make sure if you're running, you're warming up, and I'll share some mobility tips on things that I did. So, but what had happened is I think I was just like going out and just kind of going too hard and not being warmed up enough. And I think I had a tight psoas. So from kind of just knowing like my body, knowing the body from being a personal trainer, you have a psoas muscle, and that's really the muscle that connects your upper body to your lower body. And when you're running, you are using that a lot. So between that and having weak glutes, I kind of realized I was just out of balance. Like I didn't have enough glute strength to keep me in the correct posture when I was running, and hence hip injury. So really the biggest thing for me is I stopped running, and I did seek some professional help. There is somebody that I use here in Michigan, and I believe that there's other places around, but he does what's called Bowen work. And he here in Michigan, so if you are in Michigan, he's called Advanced Body Works, and his name is Mark, and he's phenomenal. He has helped me through so many different things since my daughter, who's about to be 12, was 6 months old, if that says anything about how good he is. So he was able to help release some of that tight psoas. And then myself being a trainer, I was able to put together a nice little warm up for myself to kind of fire up my glutes, so to speak, before I would start running. So I would make sure I would get through that. So strengthening glutes was super important to me because when you do run, you want to have strong glutes. Of course, you do want to have a strong core as well. But because I had that tight psoas, I had to be careful of the things I was doing for my core. So I wasn't like over activating that area. And I was kind of focusing on doing strengthening my glutes as well when I was planning out my exercises throughout the week to make sure I was getting in some extra glute work. So if you have any bands, like resistance bands, those are some amazing, it's a super inexpensive tool that you can have around. And I highly suggest getting them if you're a runner or before your leg days and doing a quick warm up. So things that you can do is just really, what was I going to say? So the side to side walks, like, so you wrap the band around your thighs and you side walk, and that really focus on getting your glutes in. I'm going to share a PDF with you guys. Britt and I are going to put together a PDF with some of these tips. So stay tuned for that. You'll be able to grab a copy with some of these tips and some of these exercises. So for me, it was really just about backing off and not trying to push through the pain because it most likely would have made it worse, and finding out an area. So that's where, if you have an injury that's stopping you from doing something you love, seek the help of a professional. Make sure that you are doing the right things to get yourself back on track. So I know sometimes as an athlete, you're like, I'm strong and I can push through, but that's one of the things that you really don't want to do if you have something that's limiting your range of motion when you're exercising. So learn from my mistakes, people. Make sure that you're warming up, even if it's a quick 5-minute walk and you're stretching. And then if you have those bands available to you, doing some of those exercises to get your glutes fired up. And Britt, I know, does some of those things too. We talk about being able to focus on firing up our glutes, because truly it is a muscle group that you want to have strong, because it really does help to support your whole body. I mean, yes, we all want a nice perky booty, but we also want to make sure that those glute muscles are supporting our body as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's really it for me. Also just making sure that you are prioritizing rest and recovery, that you're not going like 24/7. You really want to make sure that you're building that in. I know like it can be easy to just get pulled into that, I'm going to work out every day, but make sure that you prioritize that as well. So that's all for me and my fun injuries. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Britt.
All right. Well, yeah, like recruiting the glutes is huge, and you're thinking lateral walks is what you're thinking for
Mm-hmm.
the bands. But
Thank you.
yeah, no worries. I didn't want to interrupt you because you're on a roll. Um, but yeah, so definitely warming it up, because our glutes and our core are the two things that um don't get. I know we do core every day, but at the same time, it's not strength, and the whole belly button to the spine thing is showing to be more and more a myth and not helpful. And that's how we're seeing a lot of this anterior pelvic tilt and other things as well. Like, it's one of the contributing factors to the anterior pelvic tilt is weak glutes and a core, but a tight hip flexor and tight back, like things like that. But for myself, I'm no stranger to injuries. For those who know me, I've almost had every limb in a cast at some point in my life, or crutches, or yeah, I was very briefly in a wheelchair just because of the stuff I had going on. And completely immobilized as well for 8 weeks. So like I've been through there. I was in very high adrenaline sports and in competitive sports too. So injury is much more higher of a possibility. Uh, I guess I have two injuries that are very fitness related. And also two I found were the worst to recover from, and one I'm actually still recovering from, and that's from 2018. So my first one would be the dislocation of my elbow. Now, my elbow, I didn't dislocate it in the gym. I was actually playing a game of paintball competitively, and I did that there. But with training to do what I was doing, though, like with my other sports and just in general training for how I want to be and feel, it was very challenging because I wasn't able to do push-ups normally, because even bench presses, all those type of things. I'm very fortunate because I actually was able to get the mobility back in my arm minus, I believe it was 0.5 degrees. So like, according to the surgeon, that's a miracle, because usually how mine was dislocated, which I have the file, I should put it on here, but then we'll have to put another warning for graphic content. But how mine was dislocated, if it wasn't going to heal correctly, it would be fused. So that means my arm would have been permanently on a 90-degree angle because of that. But with that being said, I've had to learn how to do bench presses again, and how to do them properly so I'm not over like causing other muscles, other even bones or tendons to be overused or causing them issues. So like I had to almost relearn so many upper body movements, even like a simple bicep curl. I had to relearn how to do it so that I'm actually hitting everything correctly. So a little bit of that was an ego and a shot to the ego, but also to put me in a way my place to, okay, like sure you're able to do this and this much weight, but no, we're starting back at like basically zero and working our way back up. And I'm usually the type of person, which is why I did adrenaline sports for so long. It's like I like going 100 miles an hour. Like that's how I roll. And I had to learn to slow down because my body was not able to keep up with me no longer. So I went through seeing a surgeon, even though the surgeon felt like with the knowledge I had and the connections I had, that I didn't need surgery. So I also thought the surgery option as well. So I did do physio. I did go to chiropractors. I did do laser acupuncture. I did the whole kit and caboodle as best as I could to not be invasive. Plus, also too, I did all the homework at home with my own equipment. So yes, like the resistance bands, very, very light weights. I think at one point I was even holding a soup can because I didn't quite have a dumbbell. I was in that middle point where I couldn't hold a dumbbell yet, but I needed something that was a little bit more. So like I was using a soup can for a little while just to get everything starting to build back up again. So that's kind of my elbow. Thankfully, within a year, I was able to get back to, I'm not saying normal, my new normal for that type of injury. And then the one that I'm still working on healing is the rupturing of my L5, which is one of your lower vertebrae of your back. I did that with doing a squat. I was on my last set of 4 and it was 15 reps. If I remember correctly, it was rep 8. So I was so close to being there. How it happened was I was rushing because I was so close to being done that. And instead of having proper engagement and making sure that everything was proper, I didn't. And even too, one thing I was guilty for is usually with heavy lifts or bigger muscle groups, you want to rest between your sets. I was just going like, boom, that's done. Go get a sip of water, kind of do the whole, and then back at it again.
Yes.
So
Guilty of that.
yeah, right. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we all do it. Like everyone does it to some extent. I'm sure of it. But looking back, if I actually did take that break, really did, I would have gone in not been so exhausted, and things would have not happened like they did, because I went down and held it because it was supposed to be held for 2 seconds. I just felt a pop, like just ever so, it was just so like I actually thought that like maybe if something went where it should have, almost it was like, oh, okay, whatever. And then as soon as I tried to slightly go back up, I lost all feeling of my legs. I dropped. I thankfully had safety rails because I had 125 pounds of plates on already my weighted 50-pound bar. So
Wow.
do the math there of what was sitting on my back and how much my back was loaded. And I also, because I had no feeling in my legs when this happened, I had to drag myself to my cell phone to call for help because I have a home gym and I work out alone. So there was that trauma to that as well.
I think I'm gonna have to send you a life alert case for next time.
Right? Like, well,
Hope I
I've definitely got safer methods now, but yeah. So yeah, like that was how my trauma and that injury happened. Like I didn't prep myself properly. I didn't rest myself properly between my sets because I was rushing. Like I really do feel that the major message of this is not to rush the process at all. Yeah. Sorry, I'm barking.
Okay.
Guys, thank you. But yeah, so like not to rush it and just it sucks, but especially for those heavier lifts, it can make a huge difference because you could be, who knows what could happen. Like I could have been permanently paralyzed, but it was just, thank
Yeah.
Thank God, like it wasn't like it was just for roughly an hour. I had no feeling, and that was still long enough to have my mind
Right.
go to places it really never should have. Um, and my healing journey's been different with that. I have seen surgeons. I've had I don't even know how many X-rays and all that fun stuff. Um, I would say now for the past probably 5, 6 years, training still incorrectly for it. It wasn't until I found she's actually a massage therapist, but she has an incredible background with kinesiology and Sean McGill's methods from McGill. And she's actually who's been helping me the most with my rehab because I still to this day have a very poor nerve connection on my left side. Like the whole glutes firing thing. I
Yeah.
could get my right side to fire within usually 3 reps. Worst case, I could be up to 30 with my left side until I get something there. And that's if my sciatic doesn't kick in first because my sciatic has been used for so long as that side's nervous system that sometimes it thinks that it's supposed to be working where I'm trying to train it not to. Um, once again, everybody's different, but this is how my body's been in recovering. So
Yeah.
it is a bit of a thing because I probably won't for a very, very long time, if not ever, be able to back squat again.
Yeah.
And for years I have been back squatting and then I would hurt myself once and then I could be 2 months, which I would tell like you and I've gone through this, like you've been there with me during this. I'd be 2 months
Yeah.
off because I'm trying to fix my back.
Right.
And I was just getting lots of bad advice over time. And it wasn't until I finally found someone that's like, no, you need to be, oh, Bill, you need to like re-look at things here. And
Yeah.
yeah, so like I now I do like the glute warm-ups. I always warm up now, even if it's 20 minutes if I'm my time. Like my workouts now average 2.5 hours because I make sure I do my proper warm up, even if it's for upper. And then I do a small cool down because I still have to walk my animals. So my cool down can help out with that as well. But I also too work on mobility, probably not as much as I should, but
Yeah.
I still put it in there as
Yeah.
best as I can. But like I do recommend that if you have any form of back injury to definitely like go to physio, um, get a good coach that can kind of help you find a plan and make a plan to stick with because even though this massage therapist isn't necessarily a coach, she took on that coach role for me and
Yeah.
helped me create a plan. And since I have the personal training background, we were able together to basically make me a rehab plan. So yeah, sure, I might not be able to back squat ever again, but I can do pretty awesome belt squats right now and not hurt my back.
Yeah.
Or yeah, like you gotta get creative and use, and not say use your imagination, but there's always a way to get a workout in and
Yeah.
make it just as effective as before. It's just you got to think outside the box, and that's what her and I have done, and I'm very grateful for that as
Yeah.
well. So just having that um, connection and just finding those people, and sometimes it might take a while. Like it wasn't honestly until this year. So how many years from 2018 to now that it's taken me to find this person? But I found them, and now I'm actually getting that contraction. I'm starting to see those differences and get that strength back, which is awesome.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think too, when it comes to injuries, we can talk a little bit about mindset too, because think about like from your perspective where you're like, oh my gosh, in that hour where you couldn't feel your legs, you're like, am I going to walk again? Can I do these things again? And so to be able to get into that mindset where you're like, okay, I may not be able to do that, like you said, but I can do this. And sometimes that can be hard because you get hurt, you get injured, and then you just like, you just want to throw in the towel and say, forget it. Maybe this wasn't meant for me. But truly just, I just want to, express, don't let those things get you down. Like Britt said, find a coach or find a practitioner, find somebody who's going to listen to you and help you, listen to your body throughout the way, listen to your intuition throughout the way. But don't let an injury stop you cold. Find different ways around
Definitely.
it. I couldn't run, but could I walk? I wasn't running, but I was definitely still lifting. So don't let that injury just kind of derail all of the progress that you've made. Really just make sure that you kind of push through. And it comes to mindset, the kind of person you are, especially if you are an athlete like Britt. She said, you know, she was high adrenaline sports and she's been exercising for a really long time. You have that mindset. So even if you're not that person and you do get injured, don't let it totally cut you off from exercise. Find those resources and keep going.
Absolutely. Like you said, the whole running thing, like you walk or like, okay, instead of sprinting, do more like longer distance or do elevated or incline. And that way some of that speed's gone. So you're still able to do what you love. It's just tweaked a little. And like, hey, it not like everything's not permanent. Like that's
No.
how like everything can be changed. It's just how much will and discipline and how hard you want to work for that change, really. Like, yeah, that's
Yeah, absolutely.
what it comes down
Oh,
to.
absolutely. And I think that if you just find the right people and don't let it stop you, I think you can definitely come back and come back stronger a lot of times because you find some extra knowledge along the way. And like Britt said, she never misses a warm up. If I'm running, I don't miss my warm up. I don't miss my stretching. My cool down will, you know, be a walk or be some stretching too. So it does change your perspective and you come out a little bit stronger saying, okay, now I know what I need to do to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, yeah, because
Yeah.
we're unfortunately we're only given one body, so we do have to treat it with some care. So
Yeah. Yes, you do. Um,
yeah.
So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions on anything that we talked about, feel free to reach out. Like Britt said, we are both on Instagram, we are on Facebook. Find a way to reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, share all the places. We appreciate your support so much. And yeah.
All right, yeah. So like definitely like if there's someone that could use a little motivational boost that like, hey, if someone from running can get injured and I can somehow keep doing the lifting that I do, there's still hope out there.
There's hope
You
for
can do it
everyone.
too. It's hope for, yes, exactly. It's hope for everybody. So, with that being said, we are the hardest part is getting started. So yes, we know the hard or getting started is the hardest part, but we are here to help. And like always, we're sending as much love as possible. And stay tuned for updates because episode 8 will be dropping soon, and it is all about nutrition. We're picking one topic of it because we're going to break it into a whole bunch of series. But yeah, stay tuned for that. So we'll see you soon and have the most amazing day.